What's up, YouTube? And welcome to my pickups video for the month of February 2026. Did some travel as usual this month. Took a very short trip for work to Kansas City and back. Did not find anything on that trip, but I did just get back from Las Vegas for a few days of relaxation. And so Las Vegas I hadn't been to in about 2 years, which is actually a long time for me not to go to Vegas. I tend to go more often than that. But now that I've been, it seems like a lot has changed. There are actually several new game stores that have opened there, and just some new stuff out there that wasn't even there 2 years ago, so it's kind of interesting just to see some stuff opening up. Probably the most notable of those is Pink Gorilla, which is a famous game store in the Seattle area with several locations there. Has opened a satellite location in Las Vegas as well, and honestly, they had some really good stuff. The issue was I went very early in my trip. I got a few things from there, and I was like, man, I got several other stores to hit. I don't want to just blow it all here. But now knowing that, I think I would bring more cash and go back to Pink Gorilla for some other stuff. So pretty impressed with some of the things I had at that location. But you'll see some of that as we get into the video with some of the things I found. I also got some things locally, so we'll actually start off with one of those first. There's a game store that's about, I don't know, 45 minutes away. I don't get to real often. And they do have some pretty decent stuff. It's kind of off the beaten path. And I feel like at some point somebody traded in a complete or near complete Sega Game Gear collection. And I'm not going for a full set for that system by any means. I just like having all the weird stuff and fun games on it, especially. And I decided to get one of the really rare titles that I I haven't even seen this like at the Portland Con, like for example, just how rare this game is. But that is CJ the Elephant Fugitive. And this game is notable for a few reasons. So number one, it's by Codemasters. Which we did get some games that they released on the NES here in the US. And for some reason they did put out a few games on the Sega Genesis as well as the Sega Game Gear. English publisher, they put out a lot more games in Europe that they did in the US, but we did get a few of them. They technically have US versions, and this is one of those. So this is a platformer that was released kind of in the middle of the Game Gear's life. Nothing spectacular at all. I played it pretty extensively just because I was curious how it would be, and it's not very good. The play control is extremely floaty, but the concept of this is it's probably was like made for like an Amiga computer or something like that. And I know all the Codemasters releases typically run in series, so like there is actually a CJ game on the NES. It's part of one of the Quattro arcade packs, but this one is a standalone game that is on the Game Gear, so it's kind of weird that this one got released. The other thing that makes this notable is obviously the cartridge shape. It's very strange, and they did the same thing with their Genesis games. They had a unique cartridge shape for those as well. It's got this weird little notch cut out on the back and everything like that, but it actually fits in the Game Gear pretty well. And they released, I think, 5 or 6 games in the US, and actually a few more even in Europe that we didn't get here, these weird shells. So I was just very excited to find this in a store. It's not something I was actively chasing down, but I figured, when am I ever going to see this again? Decided to go ahead and grab it. So I don't know if I'll get all the Codemasters variants. The most notable one is Micro Machines, because it's actually a fun game. But most of the other ones are kind of just disappointing. And then there's Pete Sampras Tennis, of all things, which is probably one of the rarest games in the Game Gear if you get the US version of that game. So interesting to have that, but a weird little subset of some of those weird cartridge shapes. The next one is one I got on eBay. This was very early in the month. This is one of the Neo Geo CD games that I didn't have, and this is Last Resort. Has this very phallic-looking spaceship on the front. This is one of the shooters on the system, and it's not really one of my favorites. It is really like an R-Type clone with some additional features and things like that in it. But overall, it's just the difficulty level is incredibly high, and I'm not really the hugest R-Type fan in the first place, but if you like that game, you probably would like this. Graphics are decent for like an early-ish Neo Geo game. This is one that came out of the AES and MVS much earlier. And then we got the CD version once the CD system launched. So this wasn't like one of the mid-90s titles. It was kind of earlier 90s. It does have a really interesting game over screen that really would make you want to pump in quarters if you're playing this in the arcade. So just kind of a neat feature of it, I guess. But overall, happy to have this complete, but not really something I'm going to be playing too often when there's so many other better shooters on the system. I might have all the shooters now. I got the really rare one last month. In my last video, I featured that. So maybe I can complete that subset, but there is still a lot of good stuff on the Neo CD that I'm still chasing down. So we'll see if I end up going for the full set. I'm still kind of on the fence about it. I'll also talk about some stuff I got at Pink Gorilla next. So this one was a really exciting game to find. complete in the box. This is Blender Bros for the Game Boy Advance. And not a game that I think most people would pay a whole lot of attention to because it was published by Infogrames, which is not exactly a sign of quality. Really, they put out a lot of junk titles, a lot of PC ports, things like that during the PS1 era. But this one is not one you should sleep on because this is actually a Hudson Soft developed game, and it's a really excellent platformer that they put out that I don't think anyone really realized because Hudson Soft USA had already faded away by that point. So very excited to have this complete. I had a loose cartridge earlier. I'll just sell that off. But this is one I don't ever see complete in the box. Even came with the poster and all that good stuff in it too. So ignore the kind of plain art on the cover, but it actually is a really fun game and recommend checking this one out for sure. One other game I got out in Vegas, this was at another game store, another portable game that I found complete, is Rockman Battle and Fighters for the Neo Geo Pocket Color. This is one we didn't get in the US, and it's one that I've wanted for quite a long time. It's a pretty pricey one, but they this one I think had sat in the store for a while, and they hadn't adjusted their price, and so I think I even saw this on my prior trip out there and was like, yeah, I'll get that later. Well, now it actually was a decent price because it's gone up so much in the last couple of years that just the price that they priced it at a couple of years ago is actually a decent way to get it. So this one's a pretty weird game. It's not a traditional Mega Man or Rockman game. It is a collection of the two arcade fighting games starring Rockman. And they did come out in the US arcades. I don't really think that many people played them. Probably didn't have great distribution. But it's just such a strange concept to put the Mega Man characters in a fighting game. I mean, obviously it's Capcom. They do fighting games well, so probably made sense to them at the time. But then they created this, you know, kind of demastered version for the Neo Geo Pocket Color. It came out late in the system's life, and so I don't think a whole lot of people bought this, even though Mega Man would have been like a kind of killer app for the system if it had come out a little bit sooner. So kind of interesting that this exists. I'm looking forward to playing this. It's been one that I've always been curious about, and passed on this one many times over the years, but decided to go ahead and grab it while I was out there on the trip. So very happy to get that one. The next thing I got was a demo disc that was also from one of the new stores that was out in Vegas. It was kind of a very small store. It was off the beaten path up in the north side of Vegas, and it was, I guess, mostly computer repair, but they also had a video game selection. It's just most of the stuff they were selling was like PS3 and up, so there wasn't a whole lot of retro games in there. But they had a few PS1 games, and in the stack I found this demo disc that was sealed for the original Lunar game on the PS1. This is obviously one of the Working Designs titles, and so very nice to have that for that collection. I actually feel like I had this demo disc back in the day, because I seem to remember getting this when I worked at Funko Land, and I thought I played like a memory card file on it, and then when the game actually released, I thought I just continued my memory card file, but maybe I'm making that up, because I went through my big stack of demo discs, and I couldn't find this one, so I'll probably leave us sealed. No reason to really play it since I already have the full game, of course, but thought it was neat for just another Working Designs item to have in the collection. So got this really cheap at that store. The guy was like, I don't know, just give me $10 for it. I'm like, sure, sounds good. I don't even know what it goes for, but I figured sealed in a Working Designs demo, it can't be worth less than that. So happy to get that. Thought the store was nice, just didn't really have a whole lot of stuff I was looking for. The next one I got is a local find, so this was another thing I got earlier in the month, and it was a local store to me got a collection of complete in box NES and Super Nintendo titles in that had a whole bunch of really strong games, to the point that I had to limit myself and say, what do I want of this the most, because I don't have the money to be spending on all of these that I would love to add to the collection. So this is where I landed. I'm pretty happy with that decision, but this is Gargoyle's Quest 2 for the NES. Really interesting Capcom game featuring Firebrand, who's in Gargoyle's Quest 1 on Game Boy, as well as Demon's Crest for the Super Nintendo, and then some appearances in other Capcom games. So this one I don't think really sold that well. It was one of the later NES releases, but it is pretty fun. And I think the artwork on the cover is really cool. So very happy to have this one complete in the box. I had a cart and manual already, so I've already sold those off, and I figured this was a nice upgrade to get this one with the box and everything like that. So would have been nice to get some of the other stuff that got traded in, but I had a budget at the end of the day, and I also knew I had this trip coming up, so I wanted to save some stuff for that. I'll go back to some other things I got at Pink Gorilla. So they had some really good Neo Geo Pocket stuff in stock, like much more so than you would typically see in a store. Pink Gorilla always has had a lot of import games, and they also tend to stock up on import accessories. which I think they just buy in bulk from Japan and then spread amongst their stores. But I'm okay with that because I had some pretty good stuff for the Neo Geo Pocket that I wanted to get, since I'm kind of going for like all the weird accessories now that I've got a complete set of the US games. So first thing I got was the AC adapter. I know, not real exciting, but this is the Japanese version of it. I already had the US version. I didn't realize that until I got home, so I may just sell this off. I don't know if I really need 2 AC adapters, but this is a nice accessory to have before, you know, some of the current mods and all that things came out to play, you know, if you don't want to use batteries and stuff like that. So always nice to have these for the portable systems. If you're sitting at home, you just want to plug it into an outlet and play it that way. So I got that accessory, but the other accessory I got, I had never seen this one in person. I knew it existed, and I was very happy to grab this while I was out there. This is the Neo Geo Pocket official earbuds, which just plug into the headphone jack on the system. You know, nothing proprietary or anything like that. It's just got a standard headphone jack plug. And once I opened it up, I don't even think anyone ever used these, which is good. But they were in a baggie, and honestly, they just look like generic off-the-shelf earbuds that got put into a SNK box. I don't really think that they put any SNK branding on the earbuds themselves. At least I couldn't tell any, so I have a feeling they just licensed some other cheap earbuds that they got available and then put them in SNK branding. But very neat that this exists. I don't think this one got a US release accessory, at least officially. I've never seen like a US version of this packaging, so very happy to have this just as one of the other oddities of the Neo Geo Pocket library. And then one other store I went to in Vegas, yet another location that had video games. They have a really good video game selection in that town, which shouldn't be a big surprise because there's a lot of money circulates in Vegas for many reasons, as you can imagine. But one thing was another store had a really interesting selection of early tips and tricks magazines. And unfortunately, I only bought one because they were kind of pricey, but I also knew it was something I don't see too often. So I decided I wanted to get the one that had probably the most interesting cover of what they had available. So this is, like I said, an early issue. It's before they went to like the bound spine on them, so it just has kind of like a flimsy spine. And this has Marvel Superheroes when it was still an arcade game on the cover, which they did put a lot of arcade releases on their covers, which I thought was cool. These magazines aren't really super useful these days because, you know, it's just codes and cheats for the most part. But the writers did have like a nice, just, you know, style and how they wrote and like how they introduced themselves at the beginning of the magazine. So I've always found that interesting. It seemed like they had really good taste, even though the magazine was kind of limited as far as what it was covering. So neat to have this. And then what I thought was especially cool about this issue, since like I said, most of the codes and walkthroughs aren't really super useful, is it had a centerfold to it that has the artwork for the game, which this is the arcade marquee. So I thought that was pretty cool to see. So nice little bonus. I don't remember that being typically part of the releases, and they included it in the magazine as well. So that about does it. It was an expensive trip to Vegas, as it typically is. There was a lot more stuff I wanted to get, but I decided to cut myself off at one point, and looking forward to getting back out there at some point and getting some more stuff off my want list. So if you're in the area, definitely check it out. There's a lot of good game stores, and it's cool to see some new stuff opening up, which you don't typically see in most markets right now. So that about does it. Thank you for watching. Please take a moment, like, comment, subscribe, let me know what you think, and I will talk to you soon. Have a great day or night, wherever you are.